Hey everyone, my name is Prince, and welcome back to another video. It's been a while since I've recorded a video like this, with the full face cam and everything. There's been a lot of changes in the background as well. It's nice to actually have a background now that actually looks nice. But anyway, today I'm going to be talking about yet another obscure franchise that I am adding to the channel's library. Because I've been doing a lot of COD Zombies stuff on the channel recently, and while that is going to keep going because it's literally the most popular thing I've ever done on the channel, I definitely don't want to lose the channel's identity in that what I'm known for is doing obscure stuff. Doing videos and stuff on YouTube that no one else is doing and that no one else cares about. That's what I'm known for, and I definitely don't want to be moving away from that. So today we're going to be talking about another franchise from my childhood, and this is old. In terms of my history with all of the different franchises that I've covered on the channel, this is probably one of the oldest. Because a lot of you may know that a lot of the franchises I've covered on the channel actually come from CITV, which was a channel that I watched a lot of during my childhood. But the funny thing is, the reason I actually watched CITV is because I was sort of forced to. Because before that, I, like so many other children, watched Cartoon Network. But unfortunately, Cartoon Network actually got taken off of my TV box for literally no apparent reason, so I couldn't watch Cartoon Network anymore. But again, as I've always said, that didn't really turn out to be a bad thing, because if it wasn't for Cartoon Network being taken off of my TV box, I wouldn't have watched Dinosaur King or Max Steel. And those are two of the biggest franchises I've ever covered on my channel. However, there is actually one obscure franchise that actually came from the Cartoon Network days. Because a lot of stuff on Cartoon Network is stuff that pretty much everyone seems to remember. Because back in the day, it was the sort of main thing that everyone watched. There's not really a lot of obscure stuff on Cartoon Network because it was something that everyone watched. The sort of weird yet unique and really cool obscure franchises that I tend to cover tended to come from CITV. However, there is one franchise that was lost to the depths of my memory up until very, very recently. A franchise that, if anything, was actually more creative than anything I have ever covered on the channel thus far. And it's actually something that a few of you have actually asked me to cover before. And the reason I actually haven't covered it up until this point is because this was something that came before pretty much all of the other stuff I've covered on the channel. And I don't really think it was something I was as into as everything else as a kid. So due to that, I wasn't sure if I would be able to make actual good content on it because I wasn't really as into it as I was Max Steel, Dinosaur King, and everything else I've covered on the channel. But apropos of nothing, this show slipped into my head a couple of weeks ago, and just from watching one single episode, my love for this series just came flooding back. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Stormhawks. Now, as I said, Stormhawks is a bit of a rarity when it comes to the franchises that I liked as a kid. Because as a lot of you guys know, a lot of the franchises I've covered on the channel are obscure franchises that came from CITV. But as I said, Stormhawks was actually something that was on Cartoon Network instead. And due to me losing Cartoon Network, I don't think I actually watched the entire series in full. But I did watch a lot of the episodes, and a lot of them I still remember vividly to this day. Now, to those of you who have never seen Stormhawks before, you are in for a treat. Because not only was it made by some of the same people that actually made another one of the main franchises I've covered on my channel, Max Steel, and it also featured a lot of voice actors that were in Max Steel, it is, bar none, probably the most inventive and creative series that I have ever covered on the channel. And the reasoning behind this is that unlike literally every other franchise I have ever covered on this channel, Stormhawks is not based on Earth. Max Steel is set in a world where Earth has really advanced technology and there are a multitude of alien races out there in the stars. But despite this, it's still based around Earth. Dinosaur King involves time travel, futuristic technology, and magical stones containing the souls of dinosaurs that actually allow you to summon said dinosaurs. But despite this, it's still based around Earth, whereas Stormhawks is actually not based around Earth and instead creates an entirely new world called Atmos, with its own societies, its own rules, and its own law. So by default, having created an entirely new world, Stormhawks has immediately had to have had more creative effort put into it than literally anything I've ever covered on this channel thus far. I'm obviously not trying to put down anything else that I've covered on this channel. I'm just saying it's a fact that it's more difficult to create an entirely new world than to create a slightly modified Earth. Now, as for my coverage of Stormhawks, I probably will be doing a lot of videos similar to what I've been doing for other franchises over the years, being sort of compilation discussion videos and lore videos discussing certain aspects of the show's lore. However, due to the fact that Stormhawks is actually one of the only series I'm covering on the channel that I don't think I have ever watched in full, the main series that I'm going to be doing on it is a series that I am naming Stormhawks Rewatched, within which I will go and rewatch every single episode, react to it, and analyze it in the same sort of style that I have done in the past for stuff like Dinotopia and Max Steel Season 5. And due to the fact that a lot of you may not have watched Stormhawks as a kid and may not know anything about it, I thought a good sort of pilot episode for this series would be actually rewatching the intro to the series and sort of explaining the basics behind the story, as well as talking about a few voice actors. Because the intro of the show surprisingly does a pretty good job of sort of laying out the basic lore of the show. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Atmos, world of 1,000 mountaintop kingdoms, each protected by a sky knight against the forces of darkness.
So literally within the first 7 seconds of the intro, we're given the basics on Stormhawks lore. Stormhawks takes place in a world called Atmos, and Atmos is basically an entire world of mountaintop kingdoms set above the clouds, and each of these mountaintop kingdoms are called terrors. Terrors as in Terras. Now each terror is protected by a sky knight or a Sky Knight squadron. Sky Knights are basically brave warriors that ride these things called skimmers, which are basically flying winged motorcycles. Yes, Stormhawks is wild. There are many different types of skimmers. Some have 4 wings, some only have 2 wings, and some actually have helicopter blades instead of wings. So the Sky Knights are basically the main peacekeeping force throughout Atmos. They usually split up into different squadrons, and those squadrons protect their respective terrors.
Beasts, rogues, and worst of all, Cyclonians.
So to summarize all of that, basically Atmos is the furthest possible thing from a safe place. It's full to the brim with terrifying creatures like sky sharks and phoenixes and even dragons, and there are also a bunch of little dangerous mini factions that also roam the Atmos. But the most notorious threat in the entirety of the Atmos are these guys, the Cyclonian Empire. As the name suggests, this is a literal empire led by a spooky fucker named Master Cyclonus. They've got a pretty straightforward goal, and that is to basically rule the entirety of Atmos. But luckily, Atmos has some pretty good defenders. Can you guess who they are yet?
The greatest of all Sky Knights once led the Stormhawks. His mission? Unite the kingdoms and rid Atmos of evil forever.
So yes, the Stormhawks were a squadron of Sky Knights led by this guy. Now this dude, as Mr. Narrator just told us, is the greatest Sky Knight that ever lived. And the funny thing is, we don't really actually know his name. We only sort of have his nickname, or his sort of legendary name that he was known as by like the entirety of Atmos and the rest of the Sky Knights. So this dude was known as Lightning Strike. That's literally the only name we've ever gotten for him. He was the greatest Sky Knight that ever lived and was the leader of the original Stormhawks. Because I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but basically the Stormhawks that we follow are not the originals. Basically 10 years ago, Lightning Strike took it upon himself to basically rally every Sky Knight in Atmos against the Cyclonian Empire. And this led to this massive battle that we're currently seeing in this intro. But unfortunately, things went a bit wrong thanks to one man.
But he was betrayed. The Stormhawks defeated, and all hope lost.
Now this fucker is, funnily enough, actually also someone that we don't know the real name of, but this dude is known as the Dark Ace. As you can see, he was a member of the original Stormhawks, and he was actually Lightning Strike's co-pilot. But unfortunately, the Dark Ace turned against the Stormhawks and betrayed them for Master Cyclonus. And while I'm not sure if the specific circumstances of his betrayal are covered, again, my knowledge of Stormhawks is very limited nowadays. But if I were to make a guess, Lightning Strike was leading all of the other Sky Knights in some sort of big surprise attack against Master Cyclonus, but because the Dark Ace betrayed them, Master Cyclonus knew exactly when and where they would attack, and thus was able to prepare for them. And I believe the Dark Ace was actually responsible for throwing Lightning Strike off of his skimmer to his supposed death. I should probably also mention that below the clouds of Atmos, there is an actually, like, it's not an endless fall. There is actually ground. It's a place known as the Wastelands. It's all lavary and rocky and horrible, basically. So the Dark Ace betrayed Lightning Strike and the rest of the original Stormhawks, seemingly leading to all of their deaths. I don't think it was ever confirmed that they all died, but I think that's the assumption we're meant to have. And not only did he kill Lightning Strike, he actually stole his blade as well. Like, way to add insult to injury. And obviously, as you can see after that, he joined up with the Cyclonian Empire. And he's actually basically Master Cyclonus's right-hand man. So yeah, not good. But there's hope.
Until now. I'm Aerrow, the last descendant of the original Stormhawks, and I've been given their mission.
Now, this is where things start to get a little bit mucky. So 10 years later, these are the new Stormhawks. And right in front here, this is Aerrow. He is our main character, the leader of the new Stormhawks, and as he just said, the last descendant of the original Stormhawks. Now, the reason this is a bit weird is because very clearly, I'm sure you can all figure it out, the member of the original Stormhawks that Aerrow is related to is very obviously Lightning Strike. They have the same hair and they look basically identical. But what makes it weird is that Aerrow uses the term last descendant. And that seems to imply that there is like several generations in between him and Lightning Strike. But the big battle between the Cyclonians only happened 10 years ago. So because of this, it is widely accepted throughout the entirety of the Stormhawks fandom that Aerrow is actually Lightning Strike's son. But the weird thing is, despite this making perfect logical sense and their ages lining up pretty much perfectly, not once throughout the entirety of the series is Aerrow ever mentioned as being Lightning Strike's son. And Aerrow himself, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure the wiki says that he is aware that he's related to Lightning Strike, never refers to Lightning Strike as being his father. father. And honestly, I think that is one of the biggest missed opportunities throughout the entirety of Stormhawk. The main reason being is that the Dark Ace and Aerrow are basically main rivals in the show. Whenever the Dark Ace shows up, he is very rarely seen fighting anyone other than Aerrow. And because they never flat out say that Aerrow is Lightning Strike's son, they miss out on so much character development between him and the Dark Ace. Because unlike all of the rest of the Stormhawks and the rest of the Sky Knights by extension, Aerrow actually has a personal reason to hate the Dark Ace because the Dark Ace killed his father. Not to mention, when they're fighting, he is using his father's blade against him. And the fact that they never bring up any of that is just such a missed opportunity. Again, just like all the other franchises I've covered on the channel, I will definitely not shy away from picking out problems with the series when it has them. Out of all the things I've covered on the channel, I'd say Stormhawks is pretty good in terms of keeping plot holes and stuff to a minimum. Although then again, that's based on my past knowledge of not even watching the entirety of the show, so take that with a pinch of salt. So now that I've talked about the whole thing between Aerrow and Lightning Strike and the Dark Ace that I'm really annoyed about, let's meet our crew. First off, obviously, we have Aerrow, who is actually voiced by Sam Vincent. And a lot of you should recognize his voice because Sam Vincent is actually the same person who voices Steel in Max Steel. Now, you would have thought with me having watched so much of Max Steel that I wouldn't really be able to hear Sam Vincent as being anyone else apart from Steel. But he does a really good job at bringing Aerrow to life as a character, and when I hear him talk, I don't automatically think of Steel, and that is obviously a really good thing, because it shows that despite obviously basically using the same voice, the way he speaks as Aerrow is able to distinguish it from Steel. Although I guess that sort of has something to do with the lines he's actually scripted to say as well. And on top of this, Sam Vincent actually voices the Dark Ace as well. And you would have thought that the main character and his arch rival being voiced by the same person wouldn't really work. But surprisingly enough, it really does. When he's voicing the Dark Ace, he speaks a lot deeper and a lot more sinister, and honestly, if you didn't tell me that they were voiced by the same person, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell. He does that good a job. He's honestly awesome, this guy. But anyway, that's enough about Aerrow. Let's meet the rest of our crew.
Finn, the marksman.
So Finn, as you can probably tell, is the sort of token, slightly arrogant, thinks he's charismatic, but he really isn't character. In all honesty, I find him quite a bit annoying, but not necessarily insufferable. I'd say he's annoying, but actually in an entertaining way. Finn is voiced by a bloke named Matt Hill, and I don't really know anything else that he's been in. I did look him up on IMDb, and I didn't really recognize anything else that he's been in that I've actually seen. But yeah, that's Finn.
Junko, the strongman. Sorry.
So this is Junko, the token heavy hitter character. You may think from his appearance alone that he's the sort of meathead character, but surprisingly enough, he really isn't. He's actually surprisingly intelligent, and he's not really just a heavy hitter that's all brawn and no brain. Which I honestly really like, because you can really see him as an actual character and not just, you know, someone that goes around punching things. And as you can see, Junko actually has gigantic ears and a bit of a horned nose, and that's because within Atmos, there are actually multiple sentient humanoid species. And Junko is actually part of a species that is called, and I am not making this up, wallops. It is a genuine species known as wallops, which are known to be, you know, really strong, basically. Now, Junko is actually voiced by Colin Murdoch, who is actually someone that has been in all three eras of Max Steel. He played the original version of Toxon from the original Max Steel before the reboot that I cover on the channel. He apparently played as a random firefighter in episode 5 of the reboot, Secret Identity Crisis, and he was also the voice of Citro during the Team Turbo era. So this dude's been in Max Steel a lot.
Piper, the specialist. Let's do it.
So Piper is actually the crystal specialist of the group, and I'll get onto that in a second. But as you can see from this brief screenshot just before her name flashes up, Piper actually rides a type of skimmer known as a heliscooter, which, as you can see, has helicopter blades instead of wings. Now, Piper is basically the brainy one of the group, but she is most notably the crystal specialist. Because in Atmos, basically the main power source of literally everything is crystals. And they're actually one of my favorite parts about the entirety of Stormhawks because of all of the different types of crystals. Because when I say there's a lot of different types, I really do mean there is a lot of different types. Piper is voiced by, and I'm really sorry if I fuck this up, Kiara Zaney? It's kind of funny because I actually looked up the pronunciation of her name and she says that the beginning part of her name, spelt C-H-I-A-R-A, is pronounced as Kiara with a K. But as for her last name, Z-A-N-N-I, I actually looked up the pronunciation of that as an Italian last name because she's of Italian descent, and literally the only comments on the video telling me how to pronounce that last name were saying that it was pronounced wrong in the video. So I found that kind of funny, but I don't think she's been in anything that I would recognize.
Stork, the helmsman. We're doomed.
Now, Stork is amazing. As you'll see when we get into the series proper, he is one of the most meme-worthy characters I have ever seen in any show ever. He's also one of the most relatable characters ever. Like, you will see this as we get into the series, but he is just amazing. But Stork is the pilot of their ship, which is called the Condor, and actually belonged to the original Stormhawks. And he is also a member of a different species, as you can see by the fact that he has green skin. And he's a part of a species known as the Merb. But yeah, Stork is just an absolute meme. He is just fucking amazing. Okay, everyone, this is Editing Prince here. I don't know how, but during the initial recording, I actually apparently completely forgot to talk about Stork's voice actor, which is really weird considering he's by far the most interesting one to talk about. This video literally would have been out yesterday if I didn't randomly forget to record this bit. But Stork is voiced by Scott McNeil, who, like Colin Murdoch, is actually another person who has been in all 3 eras of Max Steel. He played both OG Elementor and OG Extroyer in the original Max Steel. He played the car salesman from Season 1, Episode 15 of the reboot, Driven, and he played Mortem from the Team Turbo era. And not only that, he also voiced a minor character in an episode of another obscure franchise I've covered on the channel, and that is Primeval New World, where he voiced Jim in Episode 3, Fear of Flying. And on top of all of that, he also voiced characters in the Dead Rising franchise and in Lego Ninjago. But I tell you what, it was actually really cool to see that he voiced someone from Primeval New World, because I had absolutely no idea that Stormhawks and Primeval New World would ever have any actors in common. But anyway, let's move on.
And of course my co-pilot, Radar.
Now, Radar is the last member of the group and Aerrow's co-pilot. A bit of a step down from Lightning Strike and the Dark Ace, but considering that the last human co-pilot betrayed the Stormhawks, maybe a non-human co-pilot isn't the worst idea. But Radar's species has, funnily enough, never actually been revealed. It doesn't appear that his species is capable of speaking English. However, he is shown to be able to understand English and respond perfectly well to English commands by his teammates. So Radar is sentient, he just can't really speak English. He does make a series of chirps and noises and stuff, and this is something that I actually found really funny. But apparently he is voiced, which I'm guessing means the noises that he makes were made by Asaf Fipke, which again, I apologize if I've said their name wrong, who is actually the creator of Stormhawk. So this was a bit of a creator cameo, which I find honestly really funny.
We're the Stormhawks. And for us, the sky is never the limit.
Yep, see, right there's his name. Oh yeah, and one more thing I wanted to mention. According to the wiki and the sort of timeline of Stormhawks, the entire crew, apart from Stork, I'm pretty sure, is supposed to be 14. No. I'm sorry, there is absolutely nothing you can do to convince me that this crew is 14. There is nothing that you can do to convince me that these guys are 14. No way in hell. That is just, no, that's just not right. No 14-year-olds in all of fucking existence look like this. They look older than Max does from Max Steel, and he's meant to be 16. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. That is completely ridiculous. Even if they are meant to be canonically 14, they do not even remotely resemble that age. Not to mention, I can't really see 14-year-olds going out, commanding their own ship, and going toe-to-toe with some of the most dangerous creatures and people in Atmos. I just don't think that's realistic. Like, at all. So I'm just sort of gonna headcanon it that they're older, because it really does not sit right with me that all of them are meant to be 14. A big part of the story and their relationship with a lot of other characters is that because they're quite young, they're not really seen as an authentic Sky Knight squadron. But most of the Sky Knights seem to be in their mid-20s to early 30s, so I don't really see any reason to make them that young, because you can make them be in their early 20s and they'd still be a lot younger than the majority of Sky Knights. So, yeah, that doesn't really sit well with me. I'm just sort of gonna headcanon it that they're like at least 18, if not in their early 20s. So yeah, everyone, that is basically Stormhawks in a nutshell. I'm not sure how long this video is gonna end up being. The raw footage is actually an hour and a half for those of you who are interested for some reason. So yeah, everyone, for those of you who have never seen Stormhawks before, I hope this video has gotten you excited for my coverage of it. And for those of you who have seen it and are big fans of it, I hope to see you on all of my future videos watching this series. Now, there is one more thing I want to mention, and that is the ending of Stormhawks. Because a lot of the different franchises that I've covered on my channel have had a lot of different endings. Some of these franchises had a pretty satisfying ending, but we were still yearning for more, like with Dinosaur King. Some franchises started off as being really good, but then eventually became so bad due to behind the scenes stuff that we were glad they ended, such as Max Steel. And some franchises had the entirety of their franchise ruined by the ending, such as the Gone series. But Stormhawks unfortunately suffered a very unfortunate fate, in that it was actually left on a cliffhanger after 2 seasons before being cancelled. And from what I've read, it was actually a pretty big cliffhanger. So the entirety of this rewatch series is basically gonna lead to one big disappointment, which is unfortunate, but, you know, what can you do? It's exactly the same as the Dinotopia series, so I'm not really a stranger to covering franchises that had a cliffhanger ending that was, you know, abandoned. But regardless, I am really excited to get into this and start watching these episodes again after so many years. It has literally been over a decade since I've watched this, and I am so excited to get back into it and both rewatch all of my old favorites and see a bunch of new episodes as well. So if you're excited for my coverage of Stormhawks, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and go join both the casual Discord, which is the Discord I use to let you guys know whenever I'm uploading videos, going live, or giving you guys teasers for future videos, and a brand new Discord. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I've done it again, the Stormhawks unofficial Discord. For those of you who don't know, I basically run a Discord for every single one of the obscure franchises I cover on my channel, and I think Stormhawks definitely deserves one as well. So go join both of those Discords in the description down below. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on another video or stream very, very soon. Goodbye, everyone.